my god!
Nice.
Oh my
It
god!
did like.
Oh my god! Woo! That was fucking insane.
Do you feel that in your chest?
Oh my god, yes I did!
Holy shit!
Oh my god!
They didn't have partnerships up until around January of 2008. I think two things that made me popular quickly was, one is I already had a viral video called the Redneck Roller Coaster that was 23 seconds long that was on 240,000 different websites all over the internet. So I went on YouTube with no expectation to ever make an income, just to express my hobby and what I'm doing, because I had 16 or 17 years worth of videos I've been making at the farm. And so I went on, and within a couple weeks I had 150 videos put on YouTube because I had so many old videos.
This movie is about parenting, in one way or another. It's about David Rock of London, Ontario, Canada, and the struggles he's gone through, and the fight he's going through to be with his kids.
Well, my goal was to actually become famous enough that my children would find me. I had no monetary goal going on YouTube because I never imagined getting paid. There was no such thing. So my goal was to become so famous on YouTube that there's no way my ex-girlfriends could hide my children from me. They would have to find me, and it worked.
The website YouTube is full of videos of outrageous stunts. Now an Ontario man is tapping into the trend with remarkable results. Dave Rock's claim to fame is smashing, wrecking, and blowing things up, and it's made his YouTube website the most watched in Canada. Rock says he does it for fun, but as CTV's John Venevali-Rao reports, he's laughing all the way to the bank.
While many farmers are still growing corn this time of year, David Rock is using his fields to grow his fan base.
I call it a redneck resort. It's insane.
Here you'll find a collection of homemade stunt cars.
It's probably the most famous farm in Canada.
A farm David put up on YouTube, along with videos of toilets he's blown up, cars he and his buddies have crushed. How old are you?
I'm 47, but that's on the outside. I think I feel like about 17.
And it's yielding David a bounty of cash.
A lot of people don't comprehend that you can make money off YouTube.
Check out this check for the month of July.
That one's $14,229 US for a month's pay for being on YouTube.
A while back, YouTube began making deals with some of its top users to share in the site's ad money. Ads that pay pennies per view, but add up.
Well, that's my YouTube empire, all run by four $250 Canon cameras. If no one murders me or something because they're jealous, I could be making $1 million a year really soon.
Not bad for a guy who's been collecting and fixing up junk for years. His most famous invention, the Redneck Roller Coaster. David also bought this old school bus for $600 and drove it up a ridiculously steep hill. That alone got 500,000 hits.
That bus has made me close to $7,000 now off YouTube videos. So
within a year and a half, became Canada's most popular YouTuber and also the most popular person in the world in the automotive category on YouTube.
David Rock, on his 48th birthday in 2009, was looking for good lawyers to represent him. His fan base at the time was about 72,000 subscribers on YouTube. It's now, in just 6 months, 80,000 plus subscribers.
Now everyone loves money, and this can be yours. This is my reward money. I am paying lawyers in London and in Calgary a lot of money to solve the case and find my missing son that Evelyn Van Beest stole.
This wasn't the first time, thankfully, that Dave had a woman, an ex-girlfriend in particular, take a child away from him. Thankfully, he knew what to do. He posted a video about it on YouTube, saying, "Go find this chick and I'll give you money."
Imagine all the beer you could buy with this reward. Ah, beer, sweet.
This video was actually evidence enough for the mother of the child to get a restraining order against Dave. But he just didn't know what to do.
Cool.
But we'll cover more of Dave's baby mom issues later on in the film.
My father was physically abusive, and that would flow over towards us too, and the kids would get hit sometimes. I can remember my mother getting beat up from the age of 3. That's as far as my memory goes back. I can remember even getting toilet trained, and I can remember not even being able to reach the light switches to turn on lights to go into the bathroom. There was times when we went for walks. You know, that was great memories with him in childhood. He would show me, he would do small repairs on his cars, and of course I was really technical and liked that kind of thing. And he wasn't an expert, but he could change a water pump, a radiator, a battery, change the oil, change the spark plugs, a tire.
Well, I was pretty proud when he graduated from high school without even studying ever.
My schedule is I get out of bed at 6:30 to 7 and have a coffee, a tart, read 2 newspapers, and then I'm done doing that by about 7:30 to close to 8 in the morning. And then it's 2 to 4 hours of emails. There's some days that are worse, but that's average. I get, in the wintertime and off season, 120 to 150 emails a day. These are mostly YouTube email messages, a few other emails on the regular Hotmail account. I try to answer 99% of them. I have a really close, working, loving relationship with my fans, and I help them because 50% of my emails are technical questions, and I'm their online guru to solve every problem from a washing machine to a car or a motorbike or who knows what. And so I give them the best possible answer to fix things right and cheaply, and hopefully they respond back, which it seems that they have, in supporting my advertising, and that's how I make a living at doing this. At least I was making a great living. Thank you, you're the best redneck mechanic being around on the earth. Cool. I guess my repair solution worked. Another repair question.
How long have you been friends with Dave?
I met him about 8 years ago. 9 years now.
Same as everybody else, and one of my videos is that, how did you find Dave's farm? I was on the internet watching stuff on YouTube, see the crazy stunts going on. Then I found out it's in Lucan. And I thought, I've got to come out here. So I emailed Dave. Dave said he was going to be out here. I came up here like everybody else does. He took me around, showed me down the back there, took me up and down Sky Hill, scared me to death at first.
I got to show you this guy. He's done the best job ever. He's in Holland, of making a copy of my redneck roller coaster car, the white one that does the tips on the front end. Nice. His works just as well, and it's made with some kind of European car. Let's find the videos. See, seats 3 up in the air, just like mine.
Kijk, nou is er niemand meer in te zitten.
Of course, they don't speak English, but he speaks English to me when I type to him. I think this is their maiden voyage.
Does he pay?
And he doesn't have a farm to drive it on, so he drives a crazy car all through the streets of where he lives. That's what my car does, exactly. That's what got David's farm
That looks a lot
famous.
unsafer.
No, this one's actually safer. Its bar that it stops on actually stops the car. Watch. This bar stops the car from rolling over, and I didn't have one of those. My car can roll over. You can't interview me with the phone on the hook. It rings all the time. I always take it off every time I edit videos or sit on the toilet. I dry my clothes halfway in the dryer, and then I take them out and lay them on the furniture to complete drying, so I save energy, and it's got a fireplace in here too that makes it very warm. Well, I have a farm now, which I wasn't ever expecting to own, but now it's the best thing I ever did. And I bought it in 1989, and it was just totally an accidental lark. It was a cold February day, but not too much snow. It was a Sunday. My father calls me up, and he was bored. He just loves window shopping for homes or properties without ever buying. So he says, come for a ride with me in the car, and we'll just take a look at some farms if you've got nothing to do on a Sunday afternoon in the winter. And I said, yeah, I've got nothing to do. And so I did, and we were up on Highway 4 just north of Lucan, and this farm just looked pretty ordinary going by, except you could see a forest and some hills in the background. There was nothing there. It was just a field. There was no driveway, just a fence around the property. Over these hills, there was an old abandoned gravel pit in there with a big spring, about this big around, with just water gushing out and then running a few feet away and going down a drain. And this gravel pit was about 4 acres big and 30 feet deep. And then here and there at the back of the land, it was all rolly, and there was giant boulders here and there, and it was really picturesque even though it was wintertime. And then it had the large area out front, which was just a field, which was suitable for growing crops or having cattle on or something. The price, that was the clincher. They were asking $125,000, which was just barely more than you could buy a lot in my city of London at that time in a decent neighborhood. So first thing in the morning, I called the real estate person. I said, this is my only one and final offer, $105,000, take it or leave it. And they took it, and I bought the farm the next day. I had so many ideas, building a house, building a shop, making off-road jumps and tracks and trails for my dirt bikes or old cars we got for free and stuff like that. So my wheels just started turning and turning and turning, and I was getting a lot of sleepless nights imagining all the adventures and all the stuff I could create out there.
Headed now to Ontario with just one place to go. Flying down the highway in a beat-up Chevy truck, wondering what the day has in store for me, counting on lady luck. Well, the farm life ain't so bad when it's all about having fun, where every car gets its swings, we're hitting that sky hill jump, where the weather is nice and the people are too. The ladies show their charm. I'm getting ready for the weekend, getting ready for Dave's farming. Oh yeah.
Dave is afraid of getting big.
Yeah.
Why would you say that?
He can't handle it, because even when we have 20 or 30 people here, I don't know, he gets,
Yeah, I know what you mean.
it's too much for him.
Who can you tell me, someone that's got money and got a nice farm and that, to let people come here for nothing?
Yeah.
And just have fun?
And live their life.
And have fun. And people turn up just to have fun, and they see it all over the world, and they want to come here.
Yeah.
They talk to us, don't they? All over the world. They talk to us. If only I could get down a farm and have some fun like what you guys are doing,
So we try and bring the fun to them.
Yeah.
There's 3 types of nudity in this world, and I'm a nudist. That's one type of nudity. First is functional nudity, where you go to the bathroom or change your clothes or stuff like that. Everybody has to do that. Then there's sexual nudity, and of course everybody knows what that is. And then there's freedom nudity. That's the third kind of nudity. Everybody's born a nudist because they all want to run around free and naked, and we have to tell them to put their clothes on. Well, in my mid-teens, that's when I started to really feel like I'm a nudist locked up in a clothed body. And There was no such thing as internet then or any way to discover information easily, so the first thing I did was like look up in a phone book to see if there was any nudist camps, and couldn't find any in my area. Eventually, by researching and stuff, I found there was one in Bothwell, but then I found out nudist camps don't allow single males under most circumstances, and through my whole teenage life I was a single male.
In North America, we're really confused between the term nudists and naturists. In Europe, it's crystal clear. A naturist is not a nudist. A nudist is a person who's just likes to be nude. Often is an element of exhibitionism, salaciousness, or whatever. Naturism is actually not about nudity, which seems really strange to the outside world. But naturism is about respect for self, respect for others, and respect for the environment. And the nudity is the tool to get there. So it's not about being nude. Going to a strip joint is about being nude. It's about nudity. It's about being nude for the stripper. You go there to see nudity. Naturists don't show themselves to each other or exhibition. They're not exhibitionists. They're not showing themselves. They're not looking at each other. So that's the real difference. Naturism is actually about the respect for self, respect for others, and respect for the environment.
So when my parents were away, I would be around the home naked if nobody else was there because they didn't accept that. It wasn't sexual whatsoever. I just noticed, I realized in my life it felt better to have no clothes on.
Naturism is not about sexuality, but sexuality is part of being human, and naturists are human like everybody else. Is there more sexuality? No. Is there public sexuality? Absolutely not. People have very traditional relationship. In fact, there was a study done a few decades ago in California, and the researcher studied the difference between naturists and non-naturists, or the regular world, and she found a lower incidence of what she called deviant sexual behavior amongst naturists or nudists than amongst the general population.
And May came and I rode my motorcycle naked. That was just the best feeling. That just made nudity one of my lifetime passions.
If you ever wanna try just one more time, you'd have a child in a developing country, but boy, the good it can do is worth more than you can imagine. Why don't you call this toll-free number right now to learn more about CPR?
Dave was now working as a machinist. While watching TV with his father one night, his father demands him to donate $20 a month to a Sally Struthers African Child Sponsorship Program.
I said, I pay room and board. I'm going to give my money wherever I want to put my money. He says, go down to your bedroom. Me and your mother have something to talk about. He called me up a half hour later. He says, you have 30 days to leave. You're out. That's it. That's how I was kicked out. And it did turn out, in hindsight, as the best thing he ever did for me in my life. You see, this was just shortly after interest rates were 20%, and they had now dropped down to 13.5% for a 5-year mortgage. So I bought my house at the lowest possible value within the 1980s you could have bought it for, and the price doubled within 5 years of what I paid for it, and now it's, of course, well over tripled. And so I'm glad it happened. It was a terrible thing at the time, but it was a subjective experience. In hindsight, it was the best thing he ever did. I was really picked on in public school. I hadn't reached puberty yet, of course. And of course, I was always considered different or nerdy or weird. And I was always proud of it and never wanted to change. So of course, girls didn't hang out with me. But when I got into high school, as soon as I hit puberty, all of a sudden, it was like I got a 50-point IQ increase or something like that, and I became everything I always wanted to be. I understood everything so much better. I suddenly excelled in school and didn't have to study for tests or exams and got great marks. Well, the ultimate one was my fancy blue go-kart with the motorcycle engine that looks like no 16-year-old could have ever made. But I did, all completely by myself with no help or direction from anybody else, and all its features, and electric start and gear shifter and clutch. Well, this is it. I made this when I was 16 years old, and now I'm 48. And it's extremely fast, and the last time I drove it was a couple months ago when I took it out from its cover, all rusty as hell and seized up, but it fired up, and I haven't driven it since it's been restored yet. All I've done is start it. The one that sort of got me a lot of attention early when I was in grade 9 was I invented a little shock box. Just looked like a little tinfoil box. It had a 9-volt transistor radio battery in it, but it put out 450 volts. So you could just leave it sitting on a table and people would be curious. It didn't look like anything. It was indescript. And they would just pick it up and start tipping it, and all of a sudden they would just go, oh, God! They couldn't believe it. The shock would go up to here, and I would get the teachers with it. I would take it around and put it in the cafeteria, and people would be, if you held it in the right direction, you could safely hand it to somebody.
Dave was a virgin until age 23. He says he didn't really pursue girls because of his home life.
I felt, number one, like there would be a competition with my father, with my girlfriend, because he liked young women and he was always trying to pick up younger women, even though he was married. And so that was one thing, and I didn't have the self-confidence because I wasn't in control of my life. He was in control of my life to have a good relationship at that point in time either. But then when I was 23, that's the year I was kicked out, and I told everybody that this is going to be the year that this time is over, I'm going to meet someone. And then I built that fancy red Mercedes car when I was 23, the year I moved out, that 1935 Mercedes that I made from looking at photographs. And the week I finished it, I said to all my friends when I got the license to drive it, I said, if this doesn't get me a woman, nothing will.
Dave met his wife Sharon at a friend's dinner party.
Next thing you know, this woman starts calling me all the time and wants to know more about me. And okay, I heard she was married. Like about a week after that, a week of conversation with her, she caught the woman who her husband was having an affair with accidentally. She was wondering if this was what was going on. She asked if she could rent a room in my house, and there was one available. And she didn't have a car, so I always had lots of cars around, so I gave her a car. And it wasn't very long before she was wanting to always sleep in my bed. So things happened pretty quick.
How fast?
She was very lonely. I guess you call it rebound. The funniest part of all this is the very first time we had sex, she got pregnant, and that's where my daughter came from. I felt really weird in a situation like this with a woman who was just married a couple weeks ago when I met her at dinner. I finally pestered her at the last minute. When she looked like she was going to explode, she said she'd marry me. So we rushed down to the courthouse and just got a quickie marriage in the afternoon for $30 or whatever it was. I knew so little about this woman. She actually wasn't my type, except that I thought I had a great find. I believed right away she was a nymphomaniac, and I thought, me having got nothing for 23 years and my first catch as a nymphomaniac, I thought I had to latch onto it before someone else found out and stole her away from me. But I learned in hindsight that's a disease, and it doesn't matter who they want to have sex with or how old or how ugly, they just want to have sex. It makes no difference to them.
And a disease it was. Little did Dave know that that disease would slowly start to eat away at their family unit. No one could have ever imagined that his home videos could have made him hundreds of thousands of dollars like it has. Some of the videos would only be seen by police dogs and attorneys.
Dave had some normal fantasies at the time.
I did ask my wife if she had friends and wanted to invite them or stuff and participate, but she said no way, as I thought that would be fun. She wasn't that type. It was okay for her to have lots of boyfriends, but we couldn't share a woman. So then the other, of course, typical male fantasy I had was to have a lesbian, especially if it was her first time or something. Well, that wasn't going to happen now that I'm locked in marriage and I was an honest type person. And my third fantasy, and I don't know which one of those three fantasies is bigger, but my third one was to see myself from through the eyes of a camera like I was a porn star.
Dave wanted to make a sex tape. Sharon wanted nothing to do with this, so he did what every sex-obsessed guy does.
So I actually set up the camera on the dresser, put my clothing on it, and hid the camera, and filmed us having sex 3 times.
I'm an insane genius. You know how genius borders on the edge of madness? Well, I'm right at that line where I could go either way, and people certainly notice that on my videos.
Well, I bought my first video camera at the same year I bought my farm, and the thing that I was envisioning very first was bomb videos. I was at that point in time a really big dangerous thrill seeker, and I was blowing up cars and refrigerators and stoves and dryers and stuff like that. I have a 1998 Pontiac Grand Prix side impact airbag. They're both in there.
Holy shit!
Passenger side airbag in your average everyday color keyed microwave that matches your car.
A couple of months later, I'm driving by, going up the highway with my wife to Grand Bend, now that spring had came and it was getting nice out. And I pointed over there and said, by the way, that's my farm, I bought that. And she freaked out. She goes, what? I said, I could afford it. Well, I've got a mortgage now that you didn't know about. My relationship with my wife in 1989 was perfect. I had no idea if there was any affairs at that time. Sex was great. The whole time I was married, I only had to ask for it twice. The rest of the time I got it whether I needed it or not. Whether I was awake or I was asleep. And that's the truth. Around 1990, I was diagnosed with being bipolar. I told everybody I felt like I was superhuman, or I felt like I was an alien in a human's body. I felt so different than everybody else. I could process information faster, sleep less, eat less, work harder, work longer hours, make more money. Depression or manic depression can run in those families, those kind of bipolar illnesses. But I never thought I had anything wrong. But I did become very depressed from the ages of 13 to 15 and very suicidal for those 2 years.
Certainly bipolarity, manic depression, whatever we call it, because the names change, is a very well documented psychological, psychiatric disturbance where people have high highs and low lows. And you could say that all of us have high highs and low lows, but the difference between someone who's bipolar and someone who's not, when the high highs and low lows, is there's no external trigger as far as we can tell. For example, if you won the lottery, you'd feel high high. Right. If someone said the next day, no, it was you're one number off, you'd feel low low. Is that manic depressive? Is that bipolar? No, because there's an obvious trigger. With bipolarity, there is no obvious trigger. It's internal.
When I was suicidal, one of the things my notes said that was I had overheard a conversation that my father had with my mother during a fight, and it turned out that I was how can I describe this? A child forced upon my mother so that my father could force her to marry him so that she would be stuck with him the rest of her life and have to deal with him. So it was like I was like a date rape on Christmas Eve, 1960.
The only thing that got him through the tough times was school, Dave says.
And I was getting such high marks at the same time. Instead of having to work and study, it was all so easy now. And so having all this extra time I was spending at school too got me through the tough times where I didn't have to go home and think about my problems and listen to my parents fighting.
What are you guzzling on?
Take her easy, guys.
Cognac. I love fine liquors. I'm a sipper of fine liquors.
He is. He gets a little bottle.
I don't have my mini bottle with me. I usually have a mini bottle.
He usually fills up this mini bottle, and then you'll see him drinking out of the side of his mouth.
I have my mini bottle stashed. I have a couple in the fridge, a couple in that room. I have them stashed.
You'll see him sitting on his chair just sipping out of his mini bottle.
1989. Dave was now working in his backyard as a mechanic and a garbage picker. One day, one of his employees stole $1,500 from his office.
Didn't take long before everybody was telling me, because every bill was $100, that he was breaking $100 bills at McDonald's. He bought himself a used little dirt bike, and then he bought himself a pair of expensive riding boots for it, and he bought himself a helmet. I called the police and reported it 3 days later. And he denied it for the longest time, and he told the police 2 more different stories of where he got it from. He couldn't make a legitimate, honest excuse where it came from, not even to his mother was curious too. After about 4 months of the police investigating, pled guilty and told the same story I just told you, how it happened. But he was really pissed off he got caught. When the police were investigating this robbery, they saw my fancy car in the backyard, my Mercedes. They saw that I had just bought a farm that year, and that I had an airplane in my backyard too that I was almost done building, but it got burned up in my farm fire later on. It turned out there was another investigation going on, which I didn't know at the time, investigating me for making money illegally. So he couldn't think of anything to say because he worked for me a long enough time. He knew everything was legit. So he made up that I was a counterfeiter.
Then in 1990, Dave's house was raided by the police.
So they raided my house for 3.5 hours, 4 cops. There was nothing. They found my photocopier, but it was obvious I couldn't make counterfeit on my photocopier. They found some jars of moonshine, which they were trying to tell me it was printing fluid, but there was no printer. And I said, I drink that stuff. They said, what do you do? I said, I drink it. They didn't believe I drank it. I put my finger in and licked it. I said, it's moonshine. They couldn't find anything that had to do with the raid. It was just totally a bum raid. And they got bored, so they just decided to turn my video camera on. It didn't have the side screen back then, just had the viewfinder, and they decided to start playing my videotapes. My camera was just sitting on my dresser and the tapes were in the top drawer. They started playing them, and they saw that I had also filmed my children, who I was raising as nudists, who were 2 and 3.5 at that time, running around the house playing naked and stuff too. And so what they did was they took my tapes, even though it wasn't part of their warrant and they couldn't legally take them, and they took them back so they could watch the whole thing to see if they could charge me with anything. And they came back 2 weeks later. Now we're talking the 17th of January, I think it was, of 1990. They, all of a sudden, they're in the house for just a minute or two, just a couple cops, and all of a sudden there's all the tapes and I'm under arrest.
I'm also a director with the Federation of Canadian Naturists. And we would be contacted occasionally by naturist parents who were being investigated, usually for other reasons, or because a spouse was complaining because they were in a divorce situation, that the other, the other was a naturist, or the children would be exposed to nudity, blah, 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 blah. And sometimes they went nowhere, but sometimes you had a worker who didn't fully understand the situation, or because their own bias as to what they thought sexuality was. Sorry, something just flew here. Because of their own bias of what they thought sexuality was, they saw sexuality in the children nudity, so they investigated. The problem is we could never talk to anybody because they'd say, well, we can't talk about it because of privacy reasons. You can't talk to parents, you can't talk to anybody. The parents talk to us, we couldn't talk to them. So I contacted the Ontario Association of Children's Aid Societies and met with the executive director, and she agreed, yeah, that doesn't fit the criteria of abuse in any way, shape, or form. But the problem is sometimes that people who are abusers, who have sexual deviance, use nudism or naturism as the excuse when they're caught. It is normal for a naturist family to have pictures of their children nude on vacation, just like anybody else would. It is not normal for somebody to have 10,000 pictures of children they don't know. And, that may seem obvious as I'm saying it, but until you say it, it isn't always. What did they charge you with?
Sexual interference, sexual assault, administering a noxious substance, exploitation, I think. There was a video of after the fact when I had given my son some rum in a cap when he was 2. He came over to me when I was watching TV and he thought I was drinking pop, and he only knew a few words when he was 2. And he kept saying, pop, pop. And he wouldn't leave me alone. And I was just sipping it straight out of the bottle. Someone had gave me at Christmas time. I was just finishing off a couple bottles at Christmas time that I had got. And so I decided to make him sort of go away and scare him off from trying to pester me. And I put some rum in the cap and I gave it to him, and he drank it straight-faced. I thought he was just going to freak out and go like this. And he drank it straight-faced, and he said more. So then I turned my camera on and I filmed him running around with his arms in the air, and he's going, ah, because even though it was alcohol, they called it a noxious substance because of the age of the child. And he never got sick. There was no side effects, anything like that. It just lasted about 20 minutes. With my children, what I had filmed, which I totally regret now, of course, that when I was changing the diaper on each one of them, I had set the camera on the floor while they were laying on the floor getting their diaper changed. And each one, while I was filming their diaper change, my daughter, I touched her vagina area and sort of parted it for a second, and then she says, don't, and I immediately took my hand away. She was 3.5. And my son, I pushed his scrotum to one side for a second while the camera was running, and that was my sexual assault, sexual interference charges.
Why did you do that? Explain.
It's hard to. I was in a really fucked up state of mind at that point in time, so it's really hard to say why. I never thought of it or planned it. I just thought to myself, as my library of children, my library of my children growing up that I was to be making on video. Because I already had filmed them running around the house playing nude because they were nudists and they weren't doing anything unusual. They were just being themselves. I just thought I should throw a diaper change in each video, but my messed up, super sexualized state of mind I had at that time, especially being manic and bored in the wintertime, that's when deviance started to happen, because being bored and over-sexualized and manic at the same time, I made the step of touching them. It didn't make a diaper changing video better. It's just that I think I was getting like pornographic or pornography sexual thoughts at the same time because the camera was on. It was like I was a monster behind the camera, even though I didn't actually do stuff in the typical way sexual abusers do. My penis was never involved in any crime, and I had no intention of doing anything to them, but I made contact with them while it was on videotape, and that didn't have to do anything to do with a parenting purpose. So it was wrong and it was illegal.
There are multiple definitions or multiple causalities, assumptions about why someone would become a sexual deviant. As you point out, one of the prevailing theories is that people who are sexually abused will go on to be abusers. So you somehow have to intervene in that cycle. However, there's a whole different way of looking at pedophilia that has nothing to do with necessarily someone being abused. And that's that someone gets stuck in an area. In fact, one of the more obvious and literary examples is in Lolita, of a man who, as a boy, at 14, I believe, falls desperate in love with a 12-year-old who's subsequently killed. And because of the intense trauma and attachment and attraction, that he's really stuck there. So he goes on to find sexual stimulation from 12-year-old girls. Now, as a 14-year-old, that's considered normal behavior. As a 40-year-old, it's not considered normal behavior, although you could argue in our society that older men having fixations on younger women is at least understood.
I knew right from wrong to a great degree for big things. I didn't have a comprehension at that time of smaller things for right and wrong. But in hindsight, I think back that the timing was perfect, just like when I got kicked out by my parents, by when I bought the farm, when I got arrested. I had just got my camera, so if anything worse would have happened with the state of mind I had, it got nipped in the bud at the minimum point.
So at the minimum point, saying that you feared that this could have progressed in some way?
In hindsight, I do, but not at the time. At the time, I wasn't coherent enough, or even though I could function and talk and act like a normal human being in some degree, I was in denial. I just couldn't accept that I had done anything wrong.
But so pedophilia is like many psychiatric disturbances. It's a spectrum. It's not that either you is or you ain't. Is Britney Spears, if a 40-year-old man buys Britney Spears albums, or did 10 years ago, or 5 years ago, does that mean he's a pedophile? A little unclear. So it really is a spectrum, and it has to be looked at that way. And the real issue about pedophilia is not, is it possible for us to feel sexual attraction to a person significantly younger than we are? The issue is the exploitation, because children are taught to trust adults, and is it a violation of that trust? So in many societies, what we would consider pedophilia is considered perfectly acceptable. So number one, it's going to be very much culturally determined. Number two, being attracted is different than acting out. Number three, there's a wide spectrum of behavior here, and the real issue is not the sexuality per se, it's the exploitation.
It's always best to use no-name cooking oils because they're cheaper. Even the barbecue starting fluid works fine, lamp oil. Now I'll be pissed if this costs more than diesel per liter. I burn whatever's cheapest. And it gives a nice lubrication for your cap to screw back in. And if you spill any, you can just clean it up with your finger, your tongue, and lick it off. It's over 50 miles per gallon, so that's amazing for a van. And I prefer having a standard transmission. And I have a similar van with, and it gets less than half the distance on the same size fuel tank. So as you can see, it's got a clutch, and it used to be automatic. See, look up here. It's got the standard transmission now, which is a Chrysler shifter with a Volkswagen transmission. So, has a lawnmower handle for a cold start lever, so it helps start it when it's cold. That's the engine fan. This is the glow plugs, so I'll warm them up now. Here, click. Wait 10 seconds. At the same time that I got this camera, this all happened in a period of 2 weeks, just after Christmas of '89. Two of my male friends, which were, well, I guess I was 28 at that time, so they would be 16, so I was 12 years older. They were friends I had met because of my sister. This was a real big novelty back in '89. Almost nobody had a video camera, and if they did, it was those giant VHS ones. I got the first model of the small tape ones made by Sony. We had talked about filming each other masturbating. So
you talked with, at age 29?
28.
28. Have a conversation with two 16-year-old boys about filming each other naked and masturbating. How does that go to the next level?
Well, we all masturbated, and when they filmed me too, we all masturbated, and we just took turns holding the camera. That was it.
So what was that night like?
We didn't do anything to each other. We weren't homosexuals. And they were talking about all the things we could film, the same stuff I described, the bombs, the car stunts and stuff like this. Then being horny 6-year-old teenagers, they were talking about sexual stuff too that could be filmed. And I said how I wanted to film my wife. We just took turns holding the camera. I filmed them, they filmed me.
So it was an educational experience.
In my bizarre, twisted way, it was a curious experience for both of us. And it wasn't something that was part of my life. I wasn't into doing stuff like that, and I didn't want to do anything with them. I was just telling them, if you can ever get a girlfriend, I would definitely loan you my camera and we can film this, because I was still overstimulated by pornography at that time.
Looking at a 2-year-old's vagina is not being stuck. That's abuse. That's that someone abused him, and he's being curious about it. It's an issue about power. It's an issue about childhood. The 16-year-old is a different ballgame, and I think that's probably acting out some homosexual tendencies that he is really uncomfortable with. And in fact, if you think about it very carefully, which obviously I'm doing, that exploring his 2-year-old's or his 3-year-old's vagina on camera is a statement of questioning his own sexuality. Right. I mean, and powerlessness. So I think if you put them all together, I think it has almost nothing to do with bipolarity and a lot to do with being abused as a child, arrogance, the narcissism.
Every time I was behind a camera, it was eroticizing for me. It made me feel like the person, like one of my 3 lifetimes fantasies, to participate or be a pornographer. There's no way I would have taken filming a male over a female at that point in time if I had the choice, but none were available. And secondly, I wouldn't have got involved in sexual activity with anybody but my wife at that point in time. And the video camera sort of was the straw that broke the camel's back that caused me to act out in another way.
What was the sentence that you were given?
1 year.
1 year in jail.
And 3 years conditional with conditions.
What were the conditions?
That I don't be around a minor under 18 unless I'm supervised by an adult, and that I don't be around my children Adam and Michelle unless I'm supervised by a children's aid person.
And it was for a period of time.
For 3 years.
3 years.
The minute you mention nude children, they say children, nudity, pornography, pedophiles. And it just gets crushed together like almost instantly in their mind. And then you say, why would you think there's more pedophiles here than anywhere else? Well, there's naked children. I say, well, yeah, but the children are with their parents. They're not left in the position of power like they are in scouting or in the church or in hockey. They're with their parents. So that would be a bit difficult for anybody who has those thoughts to get a hold of children. And lastly, sadly, you can't 100% guarantee that children will not be molested by those people. It's extremely rare. I mean, society blows it out of proportion, but we can't guarantee it. And I have children, and that's something that I've had to think about a lot. My wife and I have discussed it. But the thing about those people is they prey on children who are weak and can be bent to their will much more easily than others. They have to not have a lot of self-confidence. And clearly, keeping their clothes on hasn't saved children from being molested because most of the children that are abducted or molested have been dressed.
Let's recap everything in 3 minutes, 5 seconds. Meet Dave. He's really successful. Even though he calls himself a redneck and lives in a basement with a whole bunch of cats and does not have fancy cars or clothes, he considers himself successful.
Ooh!
Actually, he has one fancy car. A 1935 replica Mercedes he built from looking at pictures. He also has a redneck roller coaster. It's been viewed by over 2 million people. When he was 13, he received a car battery and motor for Christmas. I got a Barbie. Also, when he was young, he made a bunch of cool things like a Rubik's Cube that electrocuted people. Poor meow meow. Or a motorized skateboard. And a go-kart with a motorcycle engine. Sweet. He meets and marries Sharon, his not-so-high school sweetheart, at the ripe, tender age of 23, the year he lost his virginity. She was already married and got pregnant within 3 weeks of knowing Dave. That same year, Dave was kicked out of his father's house, made a kick-ass 1935 Mercedes, and bought his own house. He made lots of money from inflation. Dave was manic. In bipolar disorder, one can have alternating periods of elation and depression. After high school, Dave was heartily depressed. Cool. He claimed he was superhuman, could do things better, make more money, work harder, for longer, with less nourishment. Wouldn't we all like to be bipolar? In 1989, Dave bought a farm by driving by it with his father. He wanted to do cool things like drive dirt bikes, snowmobiles, and of course build a barn to store his garbage pick business in. Like 200 lawnmowers or 500 air conditioners. Wouldn't you like to have 500 air conditioners? Dave also wanted to make videos, and that's just what he did. He wanted to make bomb videos and sweet dirt bike videos, except not with a big camera. One of the little ones, like the ones you could fit in your pocket. The ones from Sony. Dave is a nudist. He was raising 2 children, Adam and Michelle, to be nudists. This guy is a nudist too. He's naked. He actually considers himself a naturist, which is more about respect for self, others, and the environment. Cool. Dave made some videos of his children and others. One of the videos was a diaper change video, where he showed his daughters
Woohoo!
and his sons.
Swing!
He touched them. He also made videos secretly of him and his wife doing the nasty. He also filmed himself and 2 teenage boys masturbating, just because he couldn't find an available girl.
Oops.
And he loved his wife. Maybe. At the same time, he had an employee who broke into his house and stole some money. A lot of money. Dave called the cops. They investigated and came back a little while later. Because of his fancy go-kart and Mercedes, they believed he was a counterfeiter. He wasn't. They left. They took his nudist child tapes and went on their merry way. 1 week later, the Popo came back and charged Dave. He pled guilty to sexual assault, interference, exploitation, and administering a noxious substance. Not so cool. Dave served 6 months, and with good behavior and not picking up the soap, was released back into society, where he was given 3 years to not associate with children without an adult, and without his own kids, without supervision.
Fuck yeah!
Let's get her done! Never before seen a beer bottle, and it's empty so that we have no alcohol abuse, and a Saturn airbag, a wire, and a person in the car, which is me, who's going to detonate it, and see what happens.
So life went on for Dave. He served his 6-month jail sentence, and after that, he had supervised semi-regular visits with his 2 children.
That is the coolest thing ever. Oh my God. Get the car. Get the car. That is what I'm
Things were pretty quiet. Until Dave met this woman, Anna Ellis Tomes.
Read the freaking papers, people. They're all true. Nobody doctored them. They're old, yes. But it doesn't matter. They're there, and they're the truth.
And this guy, Joey Mintz, a YouTube friend of Anna's. You see, Anna had a baby with Dave after his sentence was completely served. After Dave became popular in 2008 and started to publicize that he wanted to see his kids, that's when Joey stepped in and started reading all of Dave's confidential court papers that Anna and his other ex-girlfriend, Evelyn, stole from Dave.
Of psychologists and psychiatrists and other professionals that assessed David Rock back in the early 90s, which is when these documents were made, way before Evelyn. It's true, none of this has anything to do with Evelyn. This has to do with David and his history prior to her. We're talking about 1991. F, a young teenage male unidentified masturbating on David Rock's bed with pants and underwear around his ankles? I mean, what the fuck? It goes on and on, different things, just on and on and on and on. So, that's not slander, that's not defamation. Yes, they're professional opinions, but it's all, that might be confidential information, that's true and it was shared with me. As far as the conviction, that's public record.
Following the release of Joey Mintz's videos, 2 things started to happen. First being a flood of hatred videos, most being inaccurate commentary by Dave's haters, started to surface on YouTube.
San Andreas just can't get enough of the Glory Hole theme park.
Glory hole, where strangers become friends. Glory hole, you don't need to know names.
It's the place for magic and adventure. We all like speaking rodents to entertain and educate our kids, and now with Jerry Gerbil, the kids have someone they can really relate to.
Kids, come and play. I've got puppies to show you.
Yay, a giant speaking rodent! Go on, kids, have fun. I know it's safe. Jerry's wearing a latex bodysuit.
See you later, Mom. We're off to have fun with strangers.
Glory hole, it will hurt, but it's worth it.
Ride the log flume. Live the adventure of the flaming screen machine. Glory Hole Theme Park.
Glory hole.
Open every day till 3 a.m. Come live the mystery.
You know, I really didn't want to get into this because I really want nothing to do with it, but I have had some private messages, some concerns about the situation at Dave's farm.
I've noticed a lot of rant videos out there lately about the YouTube partner David's farm.
There's been some controversy with the owner's past.
The fact that he had been convicted of, well, fiddling boys, child molester.
Of course that wasn't true. But it really didn't matter to Anna, because the brush fire her and Joey had started began to burn out of control. It at least bought some time to keep Dave away. I guess Anna wanted to avoid the question of how stupid she really is for having a baby with a guy who is a quote-unquote
sexual offender. I can't be in charge of anybody's past. I have no control over it. So people that are writing me and, involving me, how am I supposed to do anything about it?
He's said himself that his YouTube channel is, by design, attractive to young teenage boys, which just so happens to be the group of kids that he has a preference for.
Of course, how could you trust such an idiot with statements such as this?
This kid here came out in a video complaining that he's being called a ginger and told that he has no soul because he has red hair. Well, as someone who obviously has some red hair, I'd like to assure everyone that I do in fact have a soul.
Gingers have souls!
The red in my hair is not a direct reflection of hellfire.
I do kind of feel bad about the victims because, it's really sad because people want to bring all this stuff out and they want to put it in the paper and make it public, and some people are just so bloody ignorant when it comes to other hate. They don't realize, these victims have to live through this again. I think it's going to be an early winter. I could be wrong because I heard it was supposed to be an El Nino.
I've been a little bit upset, actually, a bit despondent, a bit pissed off, you could almost say, that this Dave's Farm thing hasn't finally come to a fucking halt. Why is this person, this convicted pedophile, this rock spider, still on YouTube? Why? A question that may answer the question is that it's all about fucking money, because YouTube are making money putting commercials on his videos. I really think this needs to come to a screaming halt.
This video is for David Rock, aka David's Farm. Dave, you want to make this go away, Dave? You want to never have to look at my face again, Dave? Or deal with the 6699 again, Dave?
I think something drastic needs to be done.
In fact, aside from Dave's supposed endorsing of Glory Hole Theme Park, something drastic was happening. The second major consequence with the release of Joey's video was that Dave's subscribers were going up. He was making more money. More people were watching his videos. Anna Ellis Tomes, who had one of Dave's children, fought back.
I met Anna Ellis because she was a friend of a female customer that I was already fixing cars for. I constantly am hitting on her and offering her the alternate payment program, which was a big joke in the situation. The first date with Anna was just a dinner at her place. She made a nice dinner, and that was it. The only complaint she had afterwards was I forgot to flush the toilet, and she says, my cat drinks out of the toilet, so you can't do that. The second date happened within a week, and we had sex. And then I found out from her best friend that she was a bit of a nympho and had sex with so many guys, but only dated ones with money. So that getting the sex part was really easy.
There's been some videos dropped, and I do believe from talking to some people that I know that it's coming from a group called the 6699.
6699.
And how could we not trust this guy when he hides his face, and this is the process to get into his 6699 YouTube clan?
You may be asking yourselves, hey, what can this guy do for the 6699 clan? Well, I'll tell you. First things first, I neglect my children for the internet because it's serious business. Secondly, I constantly say I'm going to break bones and beat people to a bloody pulp. And thirdly, I hide behind a mask because I'm a complete faggot. So, I hope you consider my audition. I've taped some footage of me doing what I do best so I can get into the 6699 clan.
You fucking cunt! I'll have you! I'll break your fucking bones! Oh, fucking hell, look at my fucking muscles. Do you want these daddies in your throat? Yeah. Yeah. I ain't actually gonna do anything because I'm a fucking internet tough guy.
It's all about awareness and getting the word out and putting the links out, and they did it in one hell of a big bang.
Because I won't leave. We won't leave. We will continue to be a thorn in your side.
Thanks guys. Thanks for the support. But I just wanted to let everybody know, go check them out, because not sure what they're going to come up with next, but I'm sure it's going to be pretty kind of cool. So, yeah, ciao.
Anna got pregnant 3 months into our relationship. Our biggest riff in our relationship came after we found out she was pregnant. It's because I was very concerned for the well-being of the child, and I put my fist down and said, you can't drink anymore. And I think she didn't drink anymore, at least while we were still together. But she wouldn't stop smoking. She just smoked a pack and a half a day, and that got us into several fights. And when she fought, she was a violent person. She had uncontrolled rage, and she would throw objects at you or hit you. 3 months after she gets pregnant, or almost 3 months, we're just laying in bed, watching TV with the lights off, both in our underwear, nothing sexual, a perfect day, everything's fine. And all of a sudden, she just goes like this. She's laying right beside me, just wallops me with her knuckles, it hits me right there on the arm. And I was dumbfounded. I couldn't figure out why she did that. It really hurt. And I said, what's going on? She says, you know what pisses me off when guys scratch their balls? I go, what? I said, I didn't even realize I was doing it. I said, how could you tell? She says, I saw the lump moving under the covers. I said, oh, that's just the TV was on. I saw the shadow. I said, oh my God. I said, guys do that kind of thing. You need to adjust yourself. She says, well, you know what pisses me off? You should have went to the bathroom. It's just right there, and did it in there. I said, if I would have got up and walked to the bathroom, they would have already been adjusted. They would have shaken themselves. She says, well, don't you ever do that in front of me again. I said, don't you ever hit me again. I said, I already warned you that it's 3 strikes, you're out. I said, I'm not living with a person who's like my father, who could just, without provocation, just all of a sudden whack you because you say the wrong word or just do the wrong thing and never know and live in fear again. I said, I've been out of fear for the last 10 years. I'm not going to live in fear again. I got up and I said, this is it. The relationship's over. I can't live with someone like you. She said as I walked out that door, she says, she says, don't leave me. If you leave me now, I will never let you see your unborn child. And she kept her promise. He's now 13. I only saw him when he was born.
And I want to touch base a little bit on Evelyn. Everybody does not know who Evelyn is. She's actually the mother that he went after on YouTube first. Actually a very smart child and knows about what a pedophile is and that kind of stuff. So, you know what? Dave, he wants nothing to do with you. Plain and friggin' simple. I'm not going to put my child on a camera for you. Why? So you can, like, go and look at him and, like, get off on whatever it is that you do? Not going to happen. He's my child, not yours. You've had nothing to do with him. You have never supported him.
According to this document, Dave and Anna's custody agreement, Dave was paying child support until 1999, when an arsonist burned down his barn at his farm. Because he had no insurance, he could no longer afford payments, so he signed over custody to Anna. She was also threatening to submit Dave's conviction and psychiatric papers to the court for evidence to try and muscle her way to get custody. She also wanted Dave to sign off on 3-year-old Charles so he could be adopted by Robert Toms, Anna's new husband, who she later divorced and now has paying child support for Charles. Through all this, not once has Anna allowed Dave to see or associate in any way with Charles.
And her mother called me. Her mother thought it was terrible that she was being such a hard ass against me, so her mother was still getting along with me quite well, and said, you should go to the hospital, your son is being born. I find out that another man has just left, someone who she was dating that I didn't know anything about. I didn't know his name or anything, but I didn't care that she was dating someone. But I found out that she says, well, this man is going to be his father. he cut the umbilical cord, and he's actually claimed to be the father, and you're not on the birth certificate. If a woman denies the man, the father, from seeing a child and runs off with that child, and there's no court order to prevent them from running off a certain distance, then it's called denied access, and the police will not get involved. They just tell you to go back to court and see if you can get the judge to make an order to allow access again and to keep her within a certain range from your home. I've also found out, but if a man does this, it's called kidnapping. Even if he's half hour late from bringing the kids back from a visit, a legal visit, the woman can charge him with kidnapping. So and the police will prosecute. So even though the laws are supposed to be equal for males and females in Canada, they aren't. It's denied access for a woman and kidnapping if a guy does it. Well, I also found out in hindsight that if another man is involved, and he takes the child and claims it's his child, that is kidnapping. And especially because he takes the child to live in his home. If she had her own place and he moved in with her, it wouldn't have been kidnapping. But because he took my son to another city without my knowledge, claimed to be the father, falsified everything, did everything to try to make everybody think he was the father, and she was complicit in those events, the most she could get charged with is accessory to kidnapping or denied access, but he actually kidnapped. But at this time, I didn't know all the rules. All I knew was I had no evidence to show I even had a child because they had planned all this. That she just says, nope, it's going to be too complicated if he has two dads.
So how does that feel to you?
It was, I don't know which was worse. The going to jail and arrested and all that stuff I did wrong, or this I still can't decide which was worse. Those were the two greatest heart-wrenching, mind-destroying events in my life. It's something you'd never expect.
It's the 3rd of September, and we have this many police officers, including a police block at the farm.
The bylaw people showed up at my farm to tell me that I couldn't have unlicensed vehicles on my farm and that they didn't want me to make videos.
It's alleged that Anna, Evelyn, and Joey were behind the bylaw raid in September 2009. A last-ditch attempt to hurt Dave where they thought it mattered most. His wallet.
Well, who are the bylaw people? The bylaw people are the town of Luke and Biddulph, headed up by Tom Wilkinson and sidekick Wayne Hall, along with Inspector Steve, and of course, the slick-talking David Woodward, the attorney from the city.
Has there ever been 8 police officers assisting a bylaw officer before?
So, why would these folk want to get Dave to stop making some videos? Well, it's all in the blood of the town's history. You see, back in the day, the townsfolk led a little revolution to try and expropriate a little nuisance from the town of Biddulph, the Donnellys. You see, the Donnellys caused some problems, and they weren't liked very much. And how the townsfolk dealt with it was the good old-fashioned Donnelly burning. That's right. The townsfolk committed what was, and probably still is, the biggest Canadian mass murder. They lit them Donnellys' shack on fire and cooked those Donnellys alive. Woo-wee! Now, Sheriff Tom, he gets some anonymous calls and emails and complaints, about this car stuff Dave is doing and, most likely the information that he's a sexual offender. Because we don't like that. And then the cavalry went out to stop him. Armed with the biggest police force they could get their hands on, Inspector Steve went to survey the situation at the farm, looking for a lot of bylaw infractions and perhaps some pedophilia or some drug growing or, common farm activity. In fact, the owner of the town's only travel agency, Cruise Sell-Offs, who also acts as a town counselor and also heads up the Donnelly Museum. Yes, a museum that commemorates the Donnelly mass murder in the 1800s, of which the town of Lucan paid over $500,000 to not build, but rebuild.
Incredible.
Yeah, they rebuilt that Donnelly Museum. They even had a Donnelly Dollars draw to try and bring in tourism. Winners could have reimbursed the Donnelly Dollars at a local business, whatever that means. Well, now the townsfolk are looking to kick Dave out, because they just can't burn him alive. That would just be wrong. So, what are they looking to do? They've ordered Dave to stop making videos and to get rid of his idiotic redneck roller coaster and all the other mess, like the 8,000 air conditioners he has and all the vacuum cleaners and cars. Try to hit him where it hurts. Kick him in his wallet.
They've been idling that thing for like 15 or 20 minutes, just polluting the environment. I told them about the anti-idling bylaw we have around here, and they said it doesn't apply to them. I never run my cars like that. Fuel's too expensive when you have to pay for it with your own money. 8 police officers from the Lucan Police Detachment of the OPP here in Ontario came into my farm to, they said, supervise a bylaw officer and protect him. Well, I have no history of violence. Never even threatened anybody in my life. I asked them to leave because they didn't have a warrant to be on my property. They said they didn't need to leave because they were there because he had asked for assistance. Why would he need 8 cops to assist him, to protect him, when all he was there for was just some cars that we used just to drive around on my farm, which I legally own? Well, it turned out they weren't there to assist him at all. They were there to illegally search my farm without a warrant. So most of the time they left me alone with the bylaw officer while I was walking around videotaping him, and the cops weren't even near him. I could have done anything if I was a bad person. Instead, most of these police officers took off in their various vehicles and drove all over my property, as I have 5 kilometers of roads I made on my property, and searched my 100-acre farm. Now he's checking out the frame Rick would have liked to build something on. And then they went another step further. They searched the neighbor's farm near where my beach is. It's all on video. You can go watch it in those videos I posted on YouTube. And to top it all off, they violated my rights again. It's called unlawful confinement. They also parked a police car across my gateway, blocking all access in and out of my farm, thus holding me hostage on my property against my will for no reason whatsoever. The next day, of course, when the newspapers picked this all up, the police admitted there was no criminal investigation of David Rock. So why did they do this? This is my most iconic car. It's been on 240,000 websites. I'll pose in front of it for you. I've made Lucan far more famous worldwide than the Donnellys ever have or ever will. And I'm doing it for a good purpose. I'm showing the world how to have fun, Canadian style. They just can't see how this is benefiting the community. And it benefits the government too, all the taxes I pay with all the money I earn. In no way am I'm harming anybody. No one in the community complained about what I was doing or complained about the cars I had on my property.
Except this woman. Another woman Dave impregnated.
We're scared and we want to keep our identity a little bit secure so we don't have any more problems. But this is Andrew's picture. Let me see if I can get that focused in there. Oh, of his father. Oh, I can't do this. Andrew, you help. Oh, over a bit. Yeah. Okay, so that's the picture that Andrew had beside his bed. So yes, he does know about his father. There's proof. But I will let you talk to Andrew, and he will tell you. Okay, so this is Andrew, everyone. Yep, wonderful mask that he made. Very creative. Okay, so I'll ask Andrew a few questions. Andrew, do you know about your dad? You can speak. Yeah. Okay. Now, do you know that why we had to move away to Calgary and to keep you safe?
Yeah, because we were afraid if I was with Dave, you'd be afraid if he got me.
Yes. Yeah. and you know about his problems, that he's bipolar, and that's why we can't really see him, right?
In reality, that necessarily wasn't the truth. In this document, a letter to a TV investigative news reporter, Evelyn was looking to have the Children's Aid Society, the agency responsible for children's safety and welfare in their region, investigated. In this letter, dated May 98, Evelyn writes again, this time to one of Dave's diagnosing psychiatrists. Evelyn knew about Dave's convictions and all of his issues, and she still wanted to fight to stay with Dave. The Children's Aid Society told them they didn't think that was a good idea. They told him to abandon their relationship, or else face the possibility of having their child taken away, even though this was approximately 3 years after the ending of Dave's conditions, given to him by the courts.
Is there anything you want to say to everybody?
I don't know.
Okay. Just keep us safe.
Keep us safe.
Yeah. Yeah. And how hard has it been living with a paranoid mother?
It's hard living with a paranoid mother.
Yeah, I know, but I'm scared, and I just want to keep you safe.
We're back with the bigger picture.
And now for the bigger picture. Should a convicted pedophile like Dave Rock be allowed to post videos on YouTube? Is there anyone trying to stop him? And now, because of our story, a big development that may have YouTube and Google doing business differently. Into their relationship, she became pregnant with Dave's child. But at 3 months, she says she received a bizarre phone call from a concerned stranger.
He said that I really needed to look into his background, that he was a convicted pedophile, and I was already pregnant at the time, and I thought, oh my goodness, you know, what is all of this? So I had someone look into it, and I found out that it was all true.
Anna says she had already walked out of the relationship at that point. She'd fallen in love with another man who she eventually married. But we did speak to one of Google's top executives, Scott Rubin, over the phone.
We don't do background checks on partners, but we do terminate the accounts when it's not good for our advertisers. If you look back at his channel, you will see no more ads on it.
She moved to another province and started a new life. Years had gone by, and both women say they believed they had put Dave Rock behind them.
You never give up on your children. They are your children, and there was no accusation of any wrongdoing by me to have those children taken away. They were both taken away under illegal circumstances. So I feel justified in not giving up because I want my children to know the truth. I want them to have a relationship with me, and I even want them to say, fuck off, Dad, get the hell out of my life, I want nothing to do with you, just so long as there's closure, because I'm not going to force myself upon them. I just want to give them the other side of the story and the chance to know what they can have as a father or what they're going to lose by not having a father.
About 2/3 of children are being raised by one parent or another. So if we're going to say you're damaged if you didn't grow up with both parents in the household, we're going to have a whole lot of really damaged people. There's another way of thinking about that, which is, you know, I had one great parent and I had role models, I had great teachers, I had great experience, you know, I had friends, I had relatives that, and again, we may not be able to do a whole lot as children, but as adults, we can invent the family we want. We can, you know, my parents lived very far away when my daughter was very young. We adopted the next door neighbors. I think that what we need to do is make conscious what we feel our limitations are, what the problems are in our life, where they came from, and rather than laying blame or getting someone to apologize, figure out how we can fix them, because we can.
And Charles is legally old enough to make his own decision in court. He has legal paperwork that says he's always been allowed to see me. His mother just won't let him know that. He's 12. He's 13. He's legally allowed to have a voice in court and make his own decisions whether he wants to see his father or not, what kind of relationship he wants to have with him, or even if he wants to live with his father. And she won't let him know that. Did you see the new South Park video or South Park segment that came out? It was all about how famous people become addicted to sex and all start fooling around.
That's it, yeah. I thought I could get away with whatever I wanted to. I felt that I had worked hard my entire life and deserved to enjoy all the temptations around me.
It was hilarious because it was the first show that came out that had Tiger Woods represented as a South Park character. And that had all kinds of other famous people, and they were all in sexual rehab because it said that rich and famous people all of a sudden get this addiction to have sex.
What it is all of a sudden they've got boatloads of money, right? And boatloads of money will buy you anything you want.
It will buy you.
It will buy you anything
even
you
if
want.
it doesn't cost you nothing, it still attracts the women.
It attracts the women to the boatloads of money.
Like I told you before, why do you think all the women came into my life? I never asked any of them out for a date. They came and asked me out for a date.
Because they knew you had a
all
big
these
stash.
women who screwed me and fucked me up the ass now with my kids.
Because they knew you had money.
They knew I had money and I had brains, and that would make a good kid and a good provider.
Same with Joe.
And when they couldn't control and manipulate me, all of a sudden now they're haters and enemies, and they steal my kids. No, Sharon, my ex-wife, no, all she did was screw behind my back. My Sharon she totally was on my side with the kids, and she allowed me to see my kids even illegally all the time. She was risking going to jail or getting charged because she wanted to maintain a good relationship with my kids. Yeah. And so now I still have a great relationship with those two kids. Yeah, that's the way it should be.
That's very good. So it should be, yeah.
My biggest fear right now is afraid of how my children are going to turn out in the unusual environment that their mothers are raising them with, the hatred and fear and turn against your father and never meet your father. I had such high hopes for them because these women do have some good points, and these good points could be passed on, and I don't know what good points my children have inherited. And I think it's a life wasted by being raised in hatred and fear and without ever knowing half of your family. And that's the biggest fear, is how they're going to turn out.
I just finished watching the fucking documentary on Global TV. It's fucking terrible. How could they fucking do that? That's fucking awful. Fucking slandering Dave like a motherfucker. I was just at the farm having a fucking good time yesterday. Sunday, Saturday, awesome time, and like they're just saying all this stuff. Like, what the fuck? Like, why does it have to like be just brought up like this? Like, this is terrible. Like, I am so upset right now. Like, this is unbelievable. Like, slandering my fucking dad on national TV is a bitch move. Oh, I can't believe they did this. And then the bitch got her fucking advertisements taken away? Like, that is, like, that's like a fucking stab in the throat. Oh my god. What the fuck? I can't believe this! Oh my god! Oh my god! It's like Thanksgiving and they do this to us! We don't do anything bad! Oh my god! Fuck! Oh, why do they have to do that? Oh! That is so mean! Like, it was 20 years ago! 20 fucking years! And you fucking put it in the paper? All my friends to see and shit. Oh my god. Like, this is the global TV. Oh. Oh, fucking grown man fucking crying right here. Like, this is just... I hope you feel fucking good. Like, reporter girl, like, what's...
Mary?
Mary? I hope you feel good. Like, I don't even care if this is posted. Like, this is the saddest moment of my life. Like, you actually put that on national television. You are so rude. Like, unbelievable. Well, Mary, my cat, hopefully my kitty here will cheer me up. Oh my god.
No, I don't know. It's not working.
Coming home from a fun weekend at the farm and seeing this slander. Thank God for kitties. You made a grown man cry, Mary. Like, this is... I don't even care who sees this because the way you talk about my old man, nicest guy to me, does his best.
This program contains disturbing
Had a great weekend at the farm.
and language not
Slept over. Nothing happened. No. Things like that don't fucking happen.
Welcome back to 16 by 9, the bigger picture.
Oh, old news.
Star Dave Rock attracts a lot of people to the place he calls his redneck resort. Tonight, 16 by 9.
Yeah, it's fun. I had a ton of fun. Made some new friends this weekend. Hung out.
And now some very
It was a good time.
are coming forward to warn about the potential dangers.
Potential danger. Yeah, right.
You know, when I was young, pictures of new children were cute. Nobody ever saw a picture of a new child and thought sex. Today, the minute that you mention nude children picture, people think pornography. We are actually going the other way. We are sexualizing children in this idea that we're trying to protect them. And so that's the problem sometimes, is people think any picture of a nude child is sexual because nudity is sexual. So therefore it's wrong. And people sometimes have been erroneously charged by that. It's happened a few times, you know. Less now because people don't develop pictures anymore at the local Walmart or Loblaws, but more because you know, they might find them on a hard drive. But still, it's if people see pictures and say, oh, better report to the police guy says, yeah, nude child must be pornography, and they get charged. Nobody's ever been convicted because if there is no sexual context. Sure, if you had a picture of 10,000 naked children that you don't know, there's something else going on there.
I agree. Some people have been cured. I say that most people just change with age. Like, for example, I'm not manic, so I don't have overexcited sexual tendencies. Other people, I have a unique situation where I had a mental condition that was extreme and undiagnosed at the time of my offenses. I was labeled pedophile because some of what I did had to do with children. They didn't mention in court that I was making videos of normal sex with my wife because that wasn't an interest to prosecute me.
Sexual deviance is one of those areas that's horrifyingly resistant to change. And we know that there's been chemical castration that's been tried. There have been all sorts of weird things that are just the side or maybe the other side of torture. We know that sexual deviation is a very hard thing to change. And quite often the people who are deviants will explain that and will say, you know, I have no control over that, which means I think as a society we have to at that point offer them some help, and whether that means that we have restraining orders, whether we have chemical castration, but we know that it's one of the areas that is the most resistant to change, which doesn't mean that it can't be changed.
And I don't want to keep my children away from those very important institutions like, you know, scouting. My kids have been in scouting, or hockey, or in the church, just because there's been some bad experiences. So I have to assume that there's a risk. So what can I do is I have to make sure my children have the self-confidence in their body and themselves to talk to me, to say no, so that if anything, God forbid, happens, I'll be able to help them. And I'll be able to take care of that guy who is the problem.
I haven't taken medication since 93 or 94, and I took it only for 1 year, the lithium. I was monitored by a psychiatrist until about 98, and then he told me there was no need to see him anymore. And I haven't had any problems. My psychiatrist actually has 2 teenage boys, and as soon as he stopped monitoring me, he was allowed to have a non-professional relationship with me, and he regularly brought up his 2 teenage boys to ride dirt bikes at my farm, and half of the time he would just leave them there and come and pick them up in the evening with me. So he would just leave them there alone, and he knew everything about me.
In the 60+ hours we spent with Dave, it might sound ludicrous, but he committed no crimes. He did no illicit drugs. He told no lies. Everything that he said could be backed up by verifiable documents. The question to you is, should he, with his past, be allowed to see his children? Spend time with them? Do what he wants to do? Be a parent? And who's really guilty for the emotional abuse or the abandonment issues these children are going to have to deal with for the rest of their lives?
What do you want to say to them? Andrew or Charles can see this.
I'm not giving up. Please don't believe a word of what your mother says. Every story has 2 sides. It may take years before you get to hear the other side, but I'm still standing here for you, and I want to be a part of your life, and you can move in tomorrow if you want. And if I can find out I can meet you, I will be there the same day or the next day. I love you. I want to anyways, as best as I can. It's December 17th, 2008, my son Andrew's birthday, who lives in Calgary. So I'm going to call Evelyn and see if she'll let me talk to my son and wish him a happy birthday and allow me to send him some money or whatever he wants for his birthday. Hi, could I speak to Andrew and wish him happy birthday? Hello? Can I speak to Andrew? I think she hung up on me. Typical. Yep. What a bitch.
This is Constable Daniel Malmgren with the Calgary Police Service. My badge number is 4414. If you can give me a shout back, I can be reached at the District 2 office here in Calgary at 403-567-6200. That's 403-567-6200. My name again, Constable Malmgren. Just calling in regards to your email to Evelyn's Shaw account regarding some film documentary that you're doing. I'd like to talk to you about it if you can give me a shout. Thanks.
Sent on April 28th at 4:37 p.m. from a blocked number.